Welcome back to Old Guy REI. This morning, we're going back to a series that we had started about a year ago called Meet the Investor. And the thought got reignited after Zuber's event in Vegas this February. And I got to meet a lot of the people that we connected with online over the years. And this past year, I got to meet Andy Dickens. Andy's with me this morning. He's going to share his story, and we'll get to know him a little better. Good morning, Andy.
Morning, Frank. How are you this morning?
We're doing great. Thank you. Like I said, I think you and I had kind of been communicating back and forth for at least a year, maybe a little bit more. I think the first time that you sent me a message, but I really been looking forward to meeting you. And I'm not sure. Did you go to year two of the ORAD event? Did you go last year?
No, we did not. Year three was our first year.
Okay. Yeah, it was great to meet you and your wife. And we actually met first there at the Denny's meetup. That
Hmm.
was pretty cool. There was a lot of nice people there, a lot of great
Yep.
conversations. But for folks who haven't met you yet, maybe you could tell us a little bit about where you live and what kind of investing you're doing, and we'll start there.
Okay. Well, I live in Southern Ohio, so we're in Jackson County. So I'm about an hour and a half south of Columbus and 2 hours east of Cincinnati. So I can be in Ohio, West Virginia from my house in about 30 minutes from where we live at. Right now, we currently have a two-bedroom, two-bath house that we're renovating that I've owned for a long time. I bought it in 2018, and it's never been rented. So it's been a major alligator, but it was a lot of hard knocks on that one. So that's kind of us. So we got into ORAC community probably around 2020 when COVID was going on. Had a lot of road time. My W-2 job, I'm a highway superintendent for the county roads here in Jackson. So I cover about 300. We're responsible for about 300 road miles, 268 bridges, and 4,600 signs, 3,000 culverts. So I get to do that with 18 guys. So it's definitely challenging. And then, like I said, we could see that obviously when COVID hit, things changed, and we realized that you know my pension wasn't probably going to be enough, or they could change it at any time. So we just started looking into other forms of. We didn't want to work until we died. Obviously, my dad he was supposed to retire in June of '93, and he passed away the 1st of May in '93. So he never got to see retirement. That's always kind of been a driving factor for me, also.
Yeah, I think we've heard too many stories like that where folks don't get to enjoy any of their retirement. There was a story recently in the news about how much we pay into like Social Security and things, and there was a couple in there ready to retire, and they figured they had each put in at least $1 million into the system. And the husband, like you said, he passed away, and the wife was going to claim his benefit because his was a little bit higher than hers. And a few months later, she passed. So, you know, it was unfortunate and sad that they passed. But the other part of it is that all that money, sits in that account, and they never got to use a penny. So it has me thinking sometimes about taking Social Security earlier. This year I'm 61, so I think I would be eligible after next year, but we'll see how that plays out. You mentioned your W-2, and I think when we were talking in Vegas, you mentioned the crew that you manage, or I think you put it like babysitting.
Yeah.
18 guys. I think that can get a little frustrating. Um, and I'm a contractor. I never really wanted to grow my business because of that, right? You can't, I mean, people that you hire don't really care about your business, even though you're working for an organization. In my case, they don't treat customers the way I want the customer treated. They're not neat and polite, and just a lot of those common decency things that don't get they're not treated like I want them to be treated. But the house that you bought is it near your home, near your primary?
It's actually right next door. It was my mom's house. Um, she had she passed away in 2016 unexpectedly, and she didn't have anything, no will or anything, so it went through probate. So it was a 2 year battle trying to get it, and obviously it had a garage with it. My driveway shares her driveway, so we kind of had to buy it. So at the time, we wasn't really financially ready, stable. I have three grown, well, they weren't grown at the time, but we have three kids. That time they were 2016, they would have been, two of them was teenagers. One of them might have been close to being a teenager. So, they're always expensive kids. So, they were all involved in a lot of activities. So, we spent a majority of the time with that. I'd say the first couple, we always thought we was going to rent it at some point, and we got to digging into it. We was going to make an Airbnb out of it, and found a water leak and it had a lot of black mold in it, so we had to get that addressed. And so yeah, it's been the gift. My wife calls it the gift that keeps on giving.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
Um, so you got all of that worked out. I've seen some of the videos of the work that you're doing on it. It looks like it's coming out really nice. Do
it's coming
you?
along really well.
Yeah, it looks awesome. And that makes me think you just recently started your channel, and we'll put that um, the link to your channel in the show notes. But why did you think about starting a channel?
When you look at everybody whenever I first started this and started following different channels, it seemed like it gets kind of overwhelming because everybody's coming from a different aspect, and I didn't feel like I had I didn't fit into some of those aspects that they were going with. If you kind of understand where I'm going at, like I'm middle aged, so I'm 48 years old. Hard worker. I feel like we're good, good people, good citizens and stuff. But you know, we're part of the struggle too. We make good money, but it costs a lot to live anymore also. And I just always felt like maybe I wasn't good enough yet to start. Like maybe I needed to be on top to start the channel.
Hmm.
And obviously, I've got a face for radio, so it's I started the channel, and that's what I said. I'm an overweight married guy. That doesn't have these finances in order, at the time, but we're learning, and that's, I think if that resonates with somebody that's kind of in that position, whether they're 20 or they're in their 60s or older, and then they can see, hey, I can do that. This is a guy that's putting his self out there a little bit to try to. It's okay not to start at the top. It's okay to start at the bottom. It's okay to start in the middle. It's okay to be at the top and fall down, but get back up. That's what I'm trying to get at. I through the ORAC community, Zuber's channel, that's what resonated with us was the four rentals that he always talked about.
Hmm.
And I always thought that's what I always wanted was four rentals back when we bought the house. I thought we could have one for each one of the kids to do with what they wanted to do with at some point, and there would be one for my wife and I to still have income coming in. So that resonated with us. And then we got to watching Dion's channel, and um, it really, to what he come through, what he made, how he started, that really made an impression on us as well. And then from there we got to minority mindset and got to listening to him, and trying to get our finances in order. So it's, the journey can, they say it's a 10-year journey. The first 5 years suck, but there's probably a 2 or 3 year period before that journey starts that it sucks a little bit more. When you're trying to learn and you're trying to get things in order a little bit. And that's kind of where we were at.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see how your channel progresses. I think where you're starting from is going to resonate with more people, because so many of us are in that kind of situation, that position. We're trying to figure out, well, kind of our story. We're in
Hmm.
our 60s. When we started our second journey in real estate, I was 57. I'm self-employed, didn't have anything saved, So, like you, we found Zuber, I think, back in 2019 through Bigger Pockets, because he used to write for Bigger Pockets, and then from there we just started learning as much as we could. The first time we tried to get rental properties, I didn't know a thing, and we were able to buy a couple because they were just handing out money right and left with no qualifications required, and we lost those, went through bankruptcy and all that stuff. But I'm glad that you got started because I think we talk about it a lot in the group meetings that people learn a lot more from our lessons and mistakes than they do from somebody just saying, "Hey, I made it, this is how much money I make this month," or whatever it might be, and they're already there. But and we're not happy to hear that people are going through these struggles, but everybody in the community is willing to share their struggles, and that's where a lot of the learning takes place. And just from what I've seen on your stuff, you've learned so much, since you got this house. And one thing I was talking to Charles, I think, um, about probate and trusts and things like that. Going through that process might be valuable for someone to hear too, because
I I think that would be a neat. I didn't think I was thinking about that the other day. Like that would be something neat, maybe for to pass along for the next year's celebration. If we, maybe had a little talk about trust, that way we could kind of because I think like me, we obviously seen the bad end of it. But if someone, I don't want to call them, maybe a professional, someone that does it, they could maybe walk us through because we're still not really where we probably need to be at for the future too. Because if something would happen to me or my wife, where does our assets go to? There needs to be some protection there. So that's probably something valuable that, that could be looked into.
yeah, Zuber does have one person. His name escapes me at the moment, but he used to be on with Zuber quite regularly, and that's what he did. But he's in California. I'm not sure if he works in all the other states, but you're right. I think somebody like that would be valuable. And we're in the same spot. I think I was lucky when my mom passed away. I wasn't lucky because she passed away, but I was lucky that without me knowing it, she put my name on everything, on all her
Mhm.
accounts. She did start a trust, and she had three rentals. Two of them were in the trust, so that was no issue. One of them in Texas, she hadn't put in the trust yet. So the attorney had to go to court and ask the judge if we could put it in the trust so that I could manage. I was her executor. So even with that little bit of experience, I don't think I've shared that anywhere yet, but you're right. That's probably another subject we should start talking about. And I've often worried about, if something happened to me out on a job site or anywhere, that my wife would be able to, that all the information would be in a place where my wife could just, you know, take it over and keep it or sell it or whatever she wants to do with it. But at least she wouldn't have to go through court to try to get that permission. And that's a great thought. How how far away do you think it is before you have this place ready to rent that you're working on?
I I made when we flew out to Las Vegas, me and my wife were kind of chit chatting, what we were expecting to get out of the conference, and we basically decided, I've read more books the last 3 years than I have in 30 years since I've been out of school. Um, and we basically told we're trying to put systems in place now, and obviously we'll fail at some of that too, but May 1st, we decided May 1st was our goal to have the house completed and ready to be occupied. And as of yesterday, I'd say we'll beat that time frame.
Hmm.
But it's that's our goal was May 1st.
Okay. And if it is, or when it is May 1st and you're ready, have you been wor how long have you actively been working on it?
Mm, on and off for 8 years. That's
Okay.
that could that's a story for another day. The last probably since the fall of 24 is when October 24, somewhere through there is when we really put our, you know, put our heads down and really push through with it.
Great. And your wife was there with you at the conference. Has she always been on board with you um, to have something, building something for the future? Some of the folks in the group, whether it's the husband or the wife or whatever it might be, one's all in and the other one doesn't really care too much about it. But it seems like your wife's right there with you.
Yeah, she's all in. I mean, a lot of people, sometimes you look at couples, you'll think, well, that one's the controlling interest in that relationship or whatever. But I've always said my wife is my best friend, and we've been through a lot, and we always come through, we always push through, and there's not a decision that's made that we don't talk about, with our future and everything, and um, she's all in. She knows where my heart and desires are, and hers are the same way. And we've always said, obviously I would retire first, and I always wanted her to quit or retire whenever I do. She likes to travel. I like it once I go. I just hate to spend the money. She always says it's an experience. I always look at the money that I could use on something else. But so she always drags me there. And so when we went to Las Vegas, I basically said, "Here, I bought the tickets. You take care of the rest." And I don't ask how much it costs in that aspect because I'll get mad. So but no, she's always on board. I'm blessed to have her beside of me. Like I said, we come as a pair, and that's how we make the decisions. And I'm an overthinker. I try to be the devil in the details, and she's the calm one most of the time, and will say, listen to what you're saying and dig in. I know you've got the will and you've got the desire to do it, so straighten up and get your head on straight.
Yeah, I think we're both lucky that way. My wife is pretty much exactly the same. She's pulled me out of the fire a few times, when I was ready to give up and when things weren't going very well. And she was along for the first ride, like I said. She
Hmm.
always believes in me, and that time didn't work out. We Bankruptcy was really tough. We were just talking about that yesterday. We go live on Saturdays, and that's something that she kind of just fell into because Mikey used to come on with me on Saturdays, and his life got busy, so Cynthia jumped in, and people seem to enjoy her perspective. Maybe that's not to tell you what direction you should go, but um, people might like to hear her story too and how she
Hmm.
thinks. Because last year, the speakers, Matt and his wife, were speaking, and his wife actually shared a lot of really important information with the group. And this year, Ryan and his wife speaking, and I thought their talk was pretty amazing because you don't
Yep.
always hear that. People get disconnected and they're able to come back together. It doesn't always work out that way, right? One might just take off, but they worked it out apparently, and I'm really happy about that. Ryan has been one of the people in the group who is really special. He's always checking in on us, just to say hi and see how things are doing. And uh, we don't even get that from our biological family sometimes. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for the community as well.
Yeah. Ryan and Keisha are great. We actually uh, met up with them in Vegas. Where they're in Toledo. Me and him, we speak probably on a probably it's been on a weekly basis here the last couple months anyhow. But we've always just tried to meet up, and so yeah, they're great, and hopefully he's one that would like to get on our channel at some point as well.
Well, yeah, yeah, I'm sure he would. Um, and speaking of Vegas, how did you find the whole experience? Did you have some good takeaways? Was it worth your time to go?
It absolutely was worth our time. I mean, when you see everybody on the calls, like you said, it seems like we check up on each other more frequently than our biological families do, and it's kind of crazy, scary, I guess, a little bit. If I was talking about this now with some of my family are really old fashioned. Uh, they would be like, "Oh, you shouldn't be putting that out, for the world to see." They wouldn't understand it. And I think probably 5 years ago, I wouldn't have understood it. That we just picked up and drove to North Carolina to meet with Val and Mark and Dividend Dave. You know, that's kind of does sound crazy. Or we just flew to Las Vegas to meet, you know, 200 and 300 other people that was just like us. And so, yeah, it was great. I mean, it you walked in, you got to see people that you just see on a call, and kind of you already kind of know how their personalities are, but to see them in person, it kind of puts it in perspective more. Um, the event itself, I mean, you could just see, Zuber's willingness to help. I mean, I've been to work conferences, and they don't even feed you at work conferences. And, for him to, have meals, to have, soft drinks and stuff that for you the whole day, uh, and that's just him doing it. So, I mean, it was really good takeaway. I made some notes, uh, made some more relationships. That's the good thing. We had a lot of fun. We went out some nights. We didn't stay out as late as everybody did. But there's always next year. We know how to better plan for the next go round too. And my wife had just started a new job too, so she didn't have the time to take off that I do. So that makes a difference as well.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I think if we got to go year one, we had to miss year two, but when you get there and you see everybody that you've been interacting with there, it's really nice because there's no awkward moment, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you walked up or I sat with you guys and it was like we had known each other for years. And
Yep.
and that's really nice because you don't waste any time. You get right into the meat of the meeting and all those things. What does your wife do for work, if you don't mind?
She is now a school bus driver, and then she also has her real estate license now. So she does real estate on the side, and she's also a travel. She does travel agent. She likes to travel. Uh, so I
Okay.
always I always have to hear about all that stuff too. So
Yeah, I think I don't know. My wife has some places that she'd like to go see. I'm kind of a homebody, I just like kicking around the house. I'll
yep.
make this place as nice as we can, and we might be selling it to move just to help in our retirement too. But um, I don't have to. I always say there's no place in the world I need to go see. You know, now, especially with I know it's different being there in person, but with all the information available to us today, you know, maybe you're scrolling one day and you see a place that you might like to go see. My wife's always wanted to go to Alaska, so we're not sure if we'll be able to do that. I know Dion has his cruise this summer going to Alaska. That would be a nice opportunity, but we won't be ready to go during that time. But hopefully, I can get her there. I just love seeing her enjoy herself there.
Oh yeah. That's what she
Um,
says whenever we go on vacation. I'm always working while we're on vacation because I'm always I like to see how you know other groups how their infrastructure is set up, with the roads and bridges. And she's like, "Would you just enjoy yourself? Just slow down." So,
yeah, we were making fun of a few little details in the hotel that we stayed at. I'm not sure if you saw
yep,
that, but
I
you know,
did your the tiling was crooked or something. Yeah,
yeah, Cynthia's always after me. Would you stop looking around? You're going to find some mistake somewhere. And I always
yep.
just laugh. But some guys out there shouldn't have tools.
No, no.
Where do you see? So you're going to get this place done and get a tenant in there, and you probably obviously self manage since it's right next door.
Yeah, we'll self manage this one.
And then what do you hope or what do you see for the near future? Are you looking at picking up another property in your local market?
So our goal, we decided that too on on that plane going to Vegas, we needed to set some goals and accountability to us, and we'd like to see three, 2 to 3 more rentals over the next 3 to 5 years. I don't want to grow. Obviously, I think I'd like to grow really quick, but then I hear everyone's stories about having cash reserves, and things can happen. So slow is fast. So I'll just we'll stick with that. So yeah, we would kind of like to be the local market for us. We've obviously looked at Pittsburgh. Um, we've looked at Toledo and Dayton as well. Um, there's a lot of growth like in our area too. It's starting. Columbus has grown crazy. That market's hard to touch, but there's a lot of with obviously JD Vance being from Ohio. There's a lot of businesses. There's a new couple new power plants coming in within an hour from me. So it's something to look at. Maybe around here that we could, our rents could be close to the same. And I figure if I get a couple close by, and I can kind of see how the rents are doing, or if I don't like self-managing, then we'll probably look at one out of state and kind of go that route. Maybe
Mhm.
one out of state as well, just to kind of put our feet in that water and see. It's tough for me. That's what it's hardest for me to look at is because I like to do the work. I like to be a part of it. So to let someone else manage my uh, investments is still a struggle for me. I'm better with it, and I think over time that's what I'll probably end up being is having a property manager at some point. But you also go through a season too, and I think your season can change.
Yeah, that's very true. It can change at any point, and it is tough. Being a contractor myself, that when we started, we were looking at so-called turnkey properties. You might have heard that about our story, but
Yep.
a lot of when we got down to inspections, a lot of the work we were seeing was not up to par as far as what I like to see. Um, California, we're in California. It's a little bit too expensive. We had looked for a long time to get something closer to us, but like my wife says, I think it's easier for me if the properties aren't right in our backyard, just because of my personality. But
Yeah.
um, and there's a big learning curve there too, right? Being able to vet property managers and finding your own contractors. Some of our property managers are fine with us hiring other people to do the work, and I found a couple good ones in St. Louis, but they won't manage. If we have a plumber going to fix something, the property manager won't manage it,
Mhm.
which is makes sense. But I've been finding that a lot of their estimates that we're getting are like double what we end up having the work done for. So that's on one hand, it's great because we're saving money. On the other hand, it's discouraging because all the things they charging us for are probably twice as much as they should be.
Right.
Um, and maybe the last thing we could chat about would be um, your network through the one rental at a time community or on the calls that you've joined. Have you found other people? You mentioned Val and Dave that aren't too far from you.
Mhm.
Is there anybody in your local area that you've connected with?
Probably the closest one that would be uh, Ryan and Keisha.
Okay.
Um, I've kind of reached out to them a little bit, and hopefully we'll get to work together a little closer on some things, and kind of bounce some things off each other. He actually reached out to me after Vegas, and was checking on to see basically tell me maybe a contractor's the way you need to go to get quicker, and and he was right. I've tried to do a lot on my own, but time is money. Also, I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you have to hire it done, and that's what I've done. I've hired a lot of things done here recently to move it forward, and honestly, they've moved so much quicker in a few days than what I could do because I put in my day's normally a 10-hour day anyhow at work, and then sometimes 12. And then we go on storms. I average 800 hours of overtime a year. So, we get a storm, whether it's snow or rain or, windstorm, that my job obviously dictates my time. So I'm trying to be better with time management. So, Jack is another good one for Pittsburgh. If we go to that market, we we've talked to him several times, been on those calls, and so yeah, it's nice to know where people's at, kind of where they stand at. You bounce some ideas off. Obviously, I would probably would hurt someone's feelings, Mark, if we didn't mention him a little bit. I mean, some of us, he makes our blood boil sometimes. But Mark's helpful. He's trying to he puts some quotes out there for us too. The pointers where we should be at and stuff. So he he's always one I can bounce ideas off of if I got something running. I've checked in with him before. I've talked to Mikey a few times over some running some numbers and stuff. So there's there's a lot of good people out in this network. And I mean, obviously, hearing everyone's story helps you kind of relate, where you're at. And, I think the biggest thing everyone needs to realize is it's your journey. You need to pick what's best for you. You may not move as fast as what you'd like to do. Normally, when I want something done, I wanted it done 3 days ago.
Hmm.
So I have to watch myself too, and be persistent with it. Biggest thing is you got to show up. You got to put the work in, and it's just not going to. I think a lot of people get into it. They just want it handed to them, the knowledge and stuff. And most people they're not going to do that unless they're seeing you take put a foot in front of the other and kind of
Hmm.
move them a little bit, and then they're a little bit more reluctant to help you out. And I think that's true for everyone, or not just real estate investing, life in general.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's exactly how I feel too. I'm willing to help anyone I can if they're trying to help themselves, like you said,
Hmm.
and after a little while you can pick the ones out who are trying to get the help for free, or not that everybody has to go out and try to help the next person, which is nice, and most people in this group are exactly like that, right? They'll help
Hmm.
whoever, I'm thrilled when people call me to ask me to look at an inspection report or just my thoughts on something. I never thought that that would happen. So that's been a nice surprise. You
Right.
mentioned Mark. You mentioned Mark, and he was one of the first people I reached out to when I found the community, and he was
Yep.
nice enough to take my call. And I really appreciate how he's always, I don't know, kind of advertising all of us, right? All of our
Yep.
channels, all the things we're doing. He's kind of like the hub for the community.
He's a
So that's
PR
great.
guy. He's a
Yeah,
PR guy.
but he is a prankster too, so you got to watch
Oh
that
yeah.
side.
Yeah, you got to watch him with them AI videos. He'll get you every time.
Yeah, he's learning a little too much on
Yeah.
that in that respect. But I think getting back to what you just said, also um, with everybody so open with their situations, it's helps us a lot to realize that we're not the only ones going through this hard time, or whatever challenge we're going through. That's because on our calls on Wednesday, I still feel like the newbie, the new investor, but there's so many other people that join the call that have a lot of better, more years in the game, more experience. That's where the value is. Kind of like, well, I feel kind of like Mark sometimes, just being the facilitator, right?
Right.
Here's this time. Let's get in here and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So that's been really rewarding. Um, so I'm glad to hear too that when you think of moving forward, you're willing to take it slower. That's something like a lot of people, even me, I just jumped in and we bought everything we could with the money that we had saved, and it cost us a lot of time and money. Um, but I wouldn't trade it. I think now we're starting the sixth year on the first property that we bought. So hopefully that one's through the first 5 years and things like that. So, and you're right. It is hard to give up that money. You know, you work so hard for it to pay somebody to do something you could do yourself. That's a big mindset shift that but you've obviously realized that they do it so fast and it might have taken you, 3 or 4 times as long. So now you get that property up and rented a lot sooner. So I'm looking forward, like I said, to see how things progress for you and your family. And I'm glad that we were able to connect. And thanks for taking the time this morning to be on here with me.
Oh, no problem. I enjoyed it. Like I said, you'll be the first one I've done. So, like I said, I'm not the one that likes to put myself out there, but if it helps just one person, you're I'm here for that. So that's what I want to do. So
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll see you out there in the social somewhere. So thanks again, and we'll check in with you uh, soon.
all right. Thank you, Frank.
All right.